everybody. I'm Margot Black. And I'm running for Portland City Council, seat number 2. If you know me, I think most of you here do, you know that brevity is not my strong suit, which is one of the reasons why I want the job. I don't know if you guys have sat through city council meetings and the long remarks, the closing remarks of the commissioners before they vote. We're all like, we've been here for hours. And also it's my party, so I'm just gonna speak for as long as I want. Many of you know me as a fervent renters' rights activist. I am indeed that. We've heard a lot about it, and it's a big part of why I'm running for city council for sure. But I am more than that, and I think it's important that folks know who I am outside of being a renters' rights activist, and that there's a lot of work in this city outside of that I care passionately about. So, in terms of being more than a renters' rights activist, until my grandmother took over raising my sister and I, my brother would come along much later, as you just heard. I was a child of the foster care system. My mother, who suffers from acute schizophrenia, has either been incarcerated or institutionalized for most of my life. And I didn't know or meet my loving father until just last year. Hi, Dad, if you happen to be watching. So I have lived experience struggling with and worrying about the health and welfare of our elders, like my grandmother, and those suffering from acute mental illness. In 3rd grade, a Utah senator visiting my Girl Scout troop maligned food stamp recipients, suggesting they were all addicted to drugs, not realizing that my mother was one of the recipients he was degrading to this young generation who trusted him to know better. So I have lived experience feeling the shame of poverty and grappling with feeling like I deserved better, instead of believing that we only have ourselves to blame for not having opportunities to prosper and thrive. In high school, I walked out of classes and marched to the Capitol to fight for equal rights for my LGBTQ classmates who were being shamed and silenced by our school district, and again when a Jewish student was persecuted at our school for insisting on her right to religious freedom. Both battles were long and hard, but we didn't give up, and we won. So I've lived experience fighting power that works to oppress diversity instead of embracing and celebrating it. As an instructor at U of O in 2009, an estate worker whose health insurance was governed by PEB, Public Employee Benefits Board, which was undergoing changes that would directly affect maternity benefits that were important to me as a then pregnant woman, like access to midwifery and breast pumps, I launched and helped lead an organized effort with other moms and OSU workers across the state to successfully convince PEB to restore our benefits. That was one of those, like, first they laugh at you, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Like, looking back at the videos of those PEB hearings when they first got our requests, they literally were like, it's just a couple of hippies. And then, they changed their mind. As a math teacher at Lewis and Clark, I joined a nationwide effort to dramatically reform our entry-level mathematics curriculum, replacing the traditional 0 credit hour intermediate algebra course, a course that a growing body of research shows fails our students, especially our most disadvantaged students, by serving as a gatekeeper to college education. I replaced that with a course centered on civic numeracy, data analysis, quantitative reasoning, and understanding how numbers are used and misused to inform voters and policymakers. I taught them the real-world skills and concepts that our students need to be as problem solvers, critical thinkers, and leaders in today's real world. So I've lived experience moving institutional mountains that have been in place for generations. I was a 19-year-old single mom with a 6-month-old baby, who you met, but she's bigger now. Recently orphaned by my grandmother's untimely and sudden death when I experienced my first no-cause eviction, one that I would learn many years later was definitely discriminatory and illegal. This no-cause eviction was catastrophic and destabilizing, ultimately causing me to lose my job when I couldn't get there on time after having to move 2 cities away and having no car. This exacerbated the cycle of poverty that the no-cause eviction thrust me into. I remember the hot tears of embarrassment streaming down my face and the sickening feeling of worry and anxiety when my debit card was rejected at Safeway when trying to buy diapers and milk. An altruistic friend of mine from the Unitarian Church later took me in, letting me and my daughter live with him for 4 years, rent-free. His generosity and compassion made it possible for me to right my ship and attend college. I graduated in 4 years with a full scholarship, and 3 years after that, I had a master's degree in mathematics and a career I loved as a college mathematics instructor. So I have lived experience that reminds me our housing crisis didn't start after the recession in 2008. It's been around for economically and socially marginalized groups, especially in Oregon, forever. And I have lived experience of the transformative power of stable housing and what that can do for our most vulnerable folks and their families. Having worked so tirelessly the previous years to have agency over my life and feeling in many ways that I'd arrived, finally, I have to admit, when I got the second no-cause eviction in 2012 that London told you about, how shocked I was by how vulnerable families like mine were to the housing crisis. At that point in time, I was married. I had 3 lovely children of my own. We also had my little brother, who was the same age as my daughter, staying with us, and a dog and a cat, and 30 days to find a new place because the landlord's daughter needed to move back in, and it really financially destabilized us. And I remember wondering out loud if a healthy, able-bodied, white, double-income family like mine could be so easily destabilized or feel concerned that we couldn't actually afford to live in Portland anymore, how was anyone else with fewer resources possibly surviving? So I sounded the alarm. I wrote lots of letters, called the press. The letters to the governor, city commissioners, and my representatives were responded to with trite condolences and a loud and clear message that it was not their job or certainly not their priority. I was in despair that nothing could be done and that my family would suffer the consequences. But more than despair, I was angry and determined. And during the chaos of that 2012 summer, I made a promise to myself that I would do whatever it took to end no-cause evictions or die trying. So here we are. And I created that Facebook group in October of 2014 after the 500th example I saw online of a mom, usually a single mom, somebody I could relate to, struggling with housing insecurity. And I didn't know what the plan was, as London told you. I didn't know what organizing meant, except that my desk wasn't. I just knew that what was happening was not right or okay, that we weren't alone, and hoped that by sharing our stories and ideas, we would figure out how to come together to make change. The stories started rolling in, membership grew, and in the spring of 2015, it ballooned, with everyone asking when we were gonna get off Facebook and do something. Nick Caleb was there. And in the summer of 2015, I helped found Portland Tenants United. Shortly thereafter, the executive director of Community Alliance of Tenants, our friend who has passed away, Justin Burry, asked myself and Chloe Daly, the shed mother of That's a Goddamn Shed, to meet him for lunch, where he explained that our agitation on social media was having an effect, and CAT was going to take action by demanding that the city declare a renter state of emergency. An emergency we're still in, actually. So shortly thereafter, just 1 year after I created the Facebook group, hoping that change was possible, the city declared a housing state of emergency and passed a new ordinance requiring landlords to give 90 days notice for rent increases and no-cause evictions. And I remember at that time, I was like, this is really great, but like, why just 90 days? And we need to do so much more. And I was on the phone with Justin, and he's like, Margot, one step at a time. And I had written all the commissioners this long list of like 19 other things we had to do. And Justin was like, Amanda Fritz asked me about your email today. And I was like, oh, really? Like, I wrote an email and she read it. And it was the one that said, you need to pay us. I mean, landlords need to pay us when you force us out of our homes. It's too expensive. 1 year later, Portland would elect Chloe Daly to city council, and just 1 month into her term, we passed Portland's mandatory relocation ordinance, requiring landlords to pay moving expenses. Actually, Chloe's campaign launch party, I remember talking to Justin about it, and he was like, I don't know, I think we'd get sued. We did, and we won. So, at the same time as founding PTU, I joined the City Club Affordable Housing Research Committee. I met Andrea here, and some other friends. I started researching rent control and talking about it like a broken record, unwilling to be swayed by misinformed arguments that all economists agree rent control doesn't work, and diminutive suggestions that I go back to school and take Econ 101, which incidentally was the very first class I took in college. Not because I took it fall semester of my freshman year, which I did, but it was also Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7:45 a.m. It was the only class ever at 7:45 a.m. It really was my first class in college. I was told by a growing chorus of policymakers and influencers that rent control was dead on arrival, that it would be at least a decade until we could talk about lifting the statewide ban. Well, 2 years after we passed RELO, Oregon became the first state in the nation to pass a statewide cap on rent increases and restrict no-cause evictions after the first year of tenancy. So, are you noticing a trend here? I have a lifetime of lived experience being told that the status quo is here to stay, that change is impossible or must happen slowly and politely, or that we have to be grateful for what we got and not waste energy trying to get more. I have lived experience in the struggle, organizing for change, ignoring the haters but learning from failures, fighting like hell, and winning. So, what are we going to fight for, and how are we going to win? I've fallen through the cracks, and from that vantage point, I can see just how big the cracks are and how many people fall through them, despite the belief that there are adequate laws, regulations, supports, and resources to make sure they don't or to cushion their fall. If you know what I'm talking about, then you've lived the struggle or supported those who are on its front lines. This people-powered campaign is for you, for us, about us, and about empowering you, us, and the poor and working class folks of Portland to take back our city and make it a place that really, truly works for everyone, not just those with generational wealth and privileged social capital.
Right.
I remember ruminating several years ago about what it takes to be like a good commissioner or mayor. Like, how do you like win? Like, what are not win the race, but like win the job? Like, what are the metrics? You know? And I still don't know that there's a clear answer to that question. But I believe our city council's main job is to ensure healthy, whole, and empowered communities. Where our dignity and our well-being are a right and a priority, not a privilege. As city commissioner, my compass will be oriented towards ensuring that all of our communities, whether geographic, cultural, or demographic, are these things. I will do this from a framework of what I think our rights are as humans and as people who call this city home, or who used to and want to again, or who worry about whether their kids will be able to live here or how their parents will survive their old age here. I believe in and will fight for the people's right to root and remain. People have a right to put down roots in their communities and to remain in them as they change and grow. Now you can clap. I'm gonna get better at this, by the way. And I believe in and will fight for the people's right to rise and organize. When our needs aren't being met, when we suffer indignities, we should be able to stand up for ourselves and each other without fear. I believe in and will fight for the people's right to survive and thrive. I know better than many that those mythical bootstraps that we're supposed to pull ourselves up by are just a myth. Our birth privilege, gender, family size, nationality, immigration status, and skin color should not determine whether or not we have the ability to survive and thrive in our communities and city. Everyone should be entitled to healthy food, clean air and water, health care, stable housing, and dignity. My platform and agenda will include many demands and initiatives outside of housing, but I firmly believe and have a lifetime of experience to back it up that housing is at a critical and foundational intersection of many, if not all, of our city and nation's social, economic, and sustainability issues. Which is why I won't stop talking about the need for us to continue our fight for real rent control. Not the state-sanctioned 10% annual rent increases signed into law last year. I'm still very happy about. However, not rent control, okay? I will continue to fight for and expand on Tenants' Bill of Rights that PTU released in 2017 by working on utility justice, roommate rights, universal eviction defense and prevention, an anti-harassment and bullying ordinance to protect tenants from constructive evictions, and an ordinance that gives tenants the right to organize their neighbors and collectively bargain their rental agreements. I want to change our form of of government to make it more representational, inclusive, and responsive to Portlanders who are so unused to having a seat at the table, they don't even know that there is a table. Like, there are so many people who like don't know like that we have a mayor, much less who it is. And like the decisions that City Council is making like affect them like a lot. And we need to tell them where those decisions are happening and how to be part of the conversation. So I want, in addition to following the lead of the Coalition of Communities of Color on ending our commission form of government, an announcement that was just made in the paper a couple weeks ago, I want to add a fully enfranchised youth seat to City Council.
Yeah.
And open satellite sites in East Portland to participate in council meetings and meet with city officials and have access to other city resources and advisory bodies without having to get downtown during the workday. So I sit on the Rental Services Commission. I was appointed there by the mayor. He really regrets that, but he can't do anything about it. Just try. And I invite renters all the time to come, and they have to take time off. They have to find parking downtown. They have to sit through a meeting that doesn't make any sense to them. You know, they often start their testimony with like, I'm not sure if this is the right place for me. And this is literally in the charter. It says that this is the public forum for renters and Portlanders to bring their landlord-tenant issues to our attention. And then after they testify, we say thank you very much for coming, and we move on, and we never say anything about what they just testified ever again. It doesn't direct our work. We don't tell the mayor about it. We don't talk about it. That is a tremendous waste of their time, our time as the commissioners. It's a failure of the city of Portland. So we need to make those bodies, you know, real, but we need to move them to the east side. They need to be at night. There needs to be childcare, not that you request, but that is available. Yeah. Walk in the door. I mean, the voices are out there. People know what they need and what they want. They just haven't been given access to the halls of power and the people who are making those decisions. They don't even know where those decisions are being made or that they could impact them. We have to change that. Mm-hmm. Finally, I believe we can do more to help people define their own success by ensuring free public transit, universal child care, and taxing the rich. That was such a radical thing to say 4 years ago, even 2 years ago, and now everybody's doing it. The Metro bond that's coming out in May is tax the rich. Well, they're not. No, they're saying it. You're right. They haven't done it yet. The other thing is I want to fight for not a raise in the minimum wage, but a housing wage for everybody. All right? If the minimum wage isn't paying for you to live in relative dignity and comfort, be able to take care of your kids, that means spending time with them and being able to sometimes, do something with them. If it doesn't allow you to feed them and yourself and keep you and yourself and your family healthy, then it's not high enough. Right. Nobody should have to work 4 jobs and still be barely keeping a roof over their head. We need to stop talking about a minimum wage and start talking about a housing wage. Yeah. To be accountable to only 14 pages left, I promise. To be accountable to these pledges and earn the trust of low-income Portlanders who rightfully worry that when people like me get a place in the halls of power and the big paycheck that comes with it, they will forget where they came from and who they are fighting for in order to preserve their electability and likability with the more civilized establishment class. So in order to build trust and accountability, I will not accept a salary higher than the housing wage, with transparent adjustments for my family size, experience, and credentials. And I will fight for everyone to have that. Because, I very believe that, I need to work on that part. Because if you're working full-time and can't afford to pay your rent, then your rent is too high and your wages are too low. And that is all the proof we need that our city isn't working for you, and it's the job of elected officials to fix it. I do not stand alone in this. I am part of a movement. I really appreciated what Meg said about giving me all the credit for everything, because no. And in fact, every time we plan an action and I don't know if like more than 4 people are gonna be there, I'm like, because it's not one person. It doesn't matter how smart, I am or anybody else is. It doesn't matter how loud one person screams. We all have to be there together, fighting together. And we have to know all the ways they're gonna try to tell us that it's impossible, or that we're too mean, we're too uncivilized, we're too divisive. Those are tactics. Those are tactics that are being deployed to try to convince us that we can't win, and so we shouldn't even bother trying. And it takes more than one person in elected office, or 3 people in elected office, to change those dynamics. The people have to make the demands. They have to push our work. It really isn't me, it's us. Do I sound like Bernie? Oh. Not me. I'm part of a movement. You don't need me because I'm smart and because I will, or you do need me. You need me because I'm smart and because I will push the bold policies we need. You need me because you know that when I say I'm going to do something, I don't give up when someone tells me it's impossible or unpopular. Instead, I Margot them. I don't shy away when insiders tell me to be nicer, fall in line, not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, or to prioritize relationships with people in power over the needs of the people. Those warnings only make me fight harder and louder. While working a full-time job as a math teacher, I organize tenants in their communities, mobilize them for local elections to vote out electeds who were unwilling to take action, replacing them with leaders who lived the struggle and promised to fight for change, not for us, but with us. Yeah. I'm running because we need more people with the courage to stand up to the people that tell them change isn't possible. I've seen the transformative power of showing people that we can fight and proving to them that this really is our revolution, and when we fight, we win. We didn't even rehearse that. Good work. I'm running for city council because I love this city. I really do. I fell in love with it the first time I laid eyes on it as a 15-year-old on a solo trip away from home, staying at the youth hostel on Hawthorne and discovering the city by bus. I loved it when I moved here 2 years later on my own, which is where I met Emma in high school French class, Beaverton High, choosing to raise my daughter here instead of Salt Lake City. I loved it when I moved back here after graduate school in 2011, and I love it now. But I believe a better Portland is possible if we work together to shift the balance of power from the forces that are both rapidly gentrifying our city and ravaging our planet. If we work together, we can do this, but it's gonna take all hands on deck. Power will push back, but that will not stop us from creating the changes our communities deserve, and it will not stop me from winning this seat. Because when I fight, I win. Yeah. And no one gets shit done like pissed off moms. You're going to teach us the song now that everybody's here. Okay. So we're going to have David up for one more song.
Greetings from Portland, from the east side, across the Willamette Divide. Attention residents, be you people or bots, especially members of the have-nots. Usually elections are just a bummer, a choice between Tweedledum and Dumber. But this time we can kick them in the ass with a vote for the working class. If this city is ours, then let's take it back with a vote for Margot Black. Margot's been fighting for people like me since she first started living in the city. Because she's a renter, she pays the rent, and she wants to know where all her money went. She teaches math, it became clear the math doesn't add up if you're renting here. She formed the tenants union, her second occupation, taking on the landlords and the corporations. If this city is ours, then let's take it back with a vote for Margot Black. You can move into a tent and take it on the chin, You can get a ballot and you can drop it in. There's lots that needs to happen, as you'll hear Margot say, but this campaign's part of that. The election's in May, so come on out, meet me in the streets. We got a lot of neighbors that we need to meet before the radicals can take over City Hall, transform society before it falls. If the city is ours, then let's take it back with a vote for Margot Black. If this city is ours, then let's take it back with a vote for Margot Black. With a vote for Margot Black.